I'll quickly start with a little bit of background of myself. My name is Amit, and I've had the fortune to bring some pretty popular products into the market. So I've had the opportunity to wear different hats. Sometimes as a product architect, sometimes as the engineering leader, on the pre-sales side, on the sales side, the solutions architecture side, but mostly all working with some large enterprises until now. One thing that was very well articulated earlier was crawl, walk, run, and the lighthouse approach. The thing about AI, as many of the audience today, I'm looking at the poll today, it's a cross section of like what you can do. It's very easy in the industry to be enamored by the allure of all the bells and whistles of AI. And as everybody knows, every week there is a new drop of new model. Do you really go after the bleeding edge technology, because that's what you've seen being happen across the industry previously, or approach it a little bit different? Now, I was in the industry back when cloud was not a thing. Like AWS had never declared their financial result, so it was mostly a cloud was seen as mostly a novelty thing, and pretty much most of the enterprises back then had a on-premise data center, or on-premise basically shared compute facility. When cloud came along, a lot of people basically were skeptic, and they treated it as an IT tool or an IT avenue. Very similarly, right now, AI, rather than chasing AI for the technology of it, what we are seeing in enterprise side is you have to go after the outcomes. And these are some of the outcomes that clearly seem to be falling in the line of what low-hanging fruit that we heard Richard and Wade talk about earlier. So things like cost savings, things like innovation and growth, things like data-driven insights. Like every single company right now is growing revenue by way of doing developer velocity. So can you release your software or your product or your services in 2 months instead of 8 months? Well, that's an excellent use of leveraging AI. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the scenario of where the hype comes in and where the real insights are really built upon. Like if you want to be, and I'm seeing that there are so many of like our community members that are in different positions in their organization. If you want to successfully transform your organization, you have to understand what's limitations of AI, where does the AI stop, and where does the human factor come in to play a bigger role. So a lot of time, executives are going to probably have a misconception that the chatbots can solve everything, right? Not at all true. Same thing with LLM. You see every single day a new state of the art or a new premium model drops, and dropping in the best LLM does not solve your company's problem, and the work does not stop there. Same thing is AI is not a magic wand where you deploy it once and you basically just get all the benefits of it. And same thing with data. You do not get actionable insights from the data automatically. Instead, what really the enterprise is going after are areas, and people who are successful in enterprise. If you want to personally grow in your career with AI, or you want to successfully transform your company, or you just want to play the role of evangelist, introducing new technology to your organization, you have to think about how do you clean, organize, and form your ETL pipeline, which is the data pipeline. How do you take AI from that pedestal that the media has put on, bring it right into your core heart of the workflow? Like if your company is doing supply chain, are there 5 processes that you can identify which can be done better with AI? Are there guardrails and regulatory compliance you need to worry about? I think focusing your efforts around being able to do iteratively really helps you succeed. Same thing, driving adoption and organizational culture is also extremely important. Now, You've heard a lot about agentic AI, right? How do you translate all your AI knowledge into real actionable things? Like, where do you start? So I'm going to quickly give you like a side by side overview. This was something that I work on a daily basis, working with my customers and a large group of customers that are advanced digital services team, like one of my colleague Barry and myself. Like we talk to a lot of customers, and we really understand that there are nuances of personal agents, but then the way that they are used in enterprise environment, it differs in a significant way. So for example, for enterprises, long-term memory and shared memory is an important thing. For users, it's just a context. You start a new thread and you're done. Something like, for example, scheduling a bunch of automation tasks, it's a novelty thing. People talk a lot about agents that can do that, but in enterprise, orchestration is a major factor. Now, let's talk about things like ownership. So data, you own your data when you're working with agents, but in enterprise, audit, governance, compliance becomes a centerpiece. And as I mentioned earlier, many of these industries are in either oil and gas sector, telco sector. They have serious regulatory needs. And so let's jump into the workshop part. And I want to talk a little bit about like building agents yourself. If you want to target an enterprise, you have to be extremely comfortable with understanding some basic concepts. And we are going to basically talk a little bit about the traditional computers versus an agentic architecture. Now, uh, the myth is that, oh, the moment you bring in AI, there is something of a diminishing of the value of that human component, right? That's not really the case. There is a big hype going on around because of some of these big hyperscalers. The reason why they are seeing some reduction in headcount is more to do with like raising money to go after compute build out rather than agents replacing humans. So the way it works is you have CPUs in your traditional computer stack. Those are LLMs, memory, those are context windows, storage, which is long-term vector DB and long-term memory. And then your device drivers, they are your tool integration. So things like whether you're going to need a online search API, whether or not you're going to need like some kind of a image generation API. Those are all tools, and there are a number of different tools that are evolving. The critical part is operating system. And in case of agentic ecosystem, this component is what it's called agent harness. Many of you have probably heard about Cloud Code, other tools like Cursor, etc. Those are all agentic harness. Can you build it yourself? Absolutely, yes. And so typically you're going to see a little bit of a flow here, and I'm going to share my screen so you can actually take a look at how that looks like. There you go. All right. So hopefully people are able to see the screen here. What I have here is we're going to do crawl, walk, run. So we're going to see like 3 different ways, maybe 3 to 4, depending upon time, of how do you approach some of those concepts that we just talked about. One of the starting things where most practitioners, and I use the word practitioners in a more pragmatic way, that AI expertise in an organization when they're doing transformation does not simply stay limited in PowerPoints, and neither does it simply stay limited in code. It's truly a practice. It's an art of practicing. How do you take some of those concepts and bring to the table? So what you have here is essentially a simple uh, hello world, if you may say so, like a lang graph. What this is nothing but a bunch of different steps being initialized. This is in Python, so we are essentially importing a lang graph component. And let's take a look at the chatbot. All what it is doing is it is selecting Gemini Flash as the model, and it's just simply entering new nodes, which essentially are going to work as our weight of a state machine. Or in a simple term, you could think of it as it's point A, point B, point C. What you essentially created is a loop. Now let's go ahead and actually run this. Okay, so we have essentially a very, very simple form of ChatGPT here. What it does is it uses the LangGraph and LangChain, and it uses the Gemini model. So I'm going to basically say that, hey, I am in France. I would like to visit the capital city. Where should I go? Okay. So what we did here was we gave it a message, and I gave it a second message without telling it what I'm basically which place I am at. What it had to do, what the agentic workflow, that simple few lines of code, what that agentic workflow did was it understood and it remembered that I'm in France, and then now it is giving me context about Paris, like, because that's what we asked it for. Now along those lines, if I had also asked that, by the way, I am looking to explore with my family, and I want to make sure that the weather is good enough for me, I don't need to basically plan for weather. What it will do is you'll have the opportunity to also make it invoke some tools like weather lookup, tools like currency translation. Hey, how many dollars should I expect to cost if I'm, say, going for a nice boat ride or something like that? And that loop is what the basic design of AI is. Whether you go to OpenAI, whether you go to Anthropic, whether you go to any other Google Gemini providers or Amazon or Azure, this loop, agentic loop, is what is at the heart of what different frameworks do. Now, the other quick thing I wanted to quickly show here was the agentic flow. So this is how that agentic flow works. As you can probably see on the screen here, there are autonomous agents and there are prescriptive agents. What they do is, the more autonomous they are, the more self-reliant they're going to behave like. So what you have to typically specify to that agent is, hey, I'd like to be making a presentation. I'm planning on making a presentation to, say, my board of directors or my colleagues on the impact of AI on financial analysis, stock analysis. And it will figure out what you need to do, what information you need, what kind of a presentation you need, etc. However, in the enterprise, they have past 50, 60, 80 years of institutional knowledge. Like Geico has 50 different processes to determine what is the adjuster process is going to look like after an insurance incident event, right? A claim or any kind of incident event. That's where the prescriptive agents come in, that you can actually steer those agents to a great extent by fusing in a lot of institutional knowledge. Now, those code agents are great, but like a lot of people in the survey mentioned that you guys have mostly been at the high level and never had a chance to dabble in the hands-on stuff. What if you want to essentially build agents, but you have not spent a lot of time coding, or you don't come from a coding background, you are a marketing expert, or you are a video content creator, or you are essentially a leader, org leader? Well, the great thing about this is the AI ecosystem is that you actually don't have to be expert in coding at all. We are going to look at some platforms. So the platform, just like Mind Studio, there is another platform called DeFi. This is an open source platform. Anybody can essentially go and start building new agents visually without ever having to basically look at a code at all, any parts of code. So things like marketing, things like research, things like utility, knowledge retrieval. Like, you have a number of different options, and we're going to take a look at this one agent, very, very simple agent. I'm going to basically provide a bunch of basically topics to this, and it's going to go and do a research. And let's use this agent. I did not have to add any code to it. This took less than like probably 5 minutes of time to just put together. It's all drag and drop. Hey, give me some latest update on GameStop company and any news around it. Okay. Now, what happened was it basically essentially went to your desired model. It's going to go and get all the necessary results, that information that I'm going to care about, and then it's actually going to pass that results to my desired LLM. So, for example, if I was a busy executive and I only wanted a brief, concise summary, this is what it gave me. Now you can train this, or you can essentially craft this to make it do any number of things that you prefer. So, for example, if you are a stock research analyst, you can essentially tell this agent that, hey, I would like a McKinsey style report, but everything about the cash flow health and the bottom line and the top line of this organization. And I also want to research competitive pressures of what this company is heading into next quarter. And it's going to take all the raw data that it found from online, and it's going to exactly craft it the way you want, in your tone, your language, without you ever having to write the code at all. And so, like, as you can see, like, the GameStop company, they are proposing a acquisition play for eBay, and that's what it quickly was able to pull it. So there are a number of different ways you can explore building agents without ever having to write code. And I think that I like the thought that Hannah had shared in our session, as well as some of the sessions that Hannah and Kara have shared in previous workshops with Tech in Motion, that don't be afraid of AI. If you want to grow in your career, you can actually start with really, really small things. As you understand some of these concepts a little bit better, you'll actually see that while this slide may look a little bit overwhelming, when you try it with some of these visual builders, it will start making sense, and you'll actually start thinking from a domain expert point of view. AI is not going to make you an overnight expert in the domain that you are not familiar with. So I could know all the AI in the world, but it's not going to make me expert at content or community curation like Hannah is, or like Mr. Beast is on YouTube content creation, right? But if Hannah, who's already excellent in building a community, creating content, bringing new stories to you, if she were to use AI, it can enhance the effectiveness by 10x. So that's where I think the domain expertise comes into picture. Now let's look at some other potential workflows as well. I am going to talk about a pattern called RAG. A lot of people know what RAG is. So this is another open source tool called Langflow. What this does is that it allows you to essentially go and build any number of agents here. So research, methodology, RAG. We're going to talk about building a RAG agent here, actually. So this is what we're going to talk about. Let's say I have a magazine. So this is like a AI magazine, and it's like a magazine like Forbes, and it's talking about a bunch of personalities in AI industry, like different executives in AI industry that are currently making impact here. So let's take a look at this workflow diagram. There you go. Super easy to build. I didn't have to do a whole lot. I gave it this AI magazine as my content. You can give 50, 100 of your textbooks, your PDF reports from your company's knowledge base, or let's say if you are essentially building some a tool for your internal enterprise users. This could be a benefits guide. This could be any content that you care about, right? Like it could be a large library of like thousands of PDFs or slide decks, etc. Let's see what it can do. So essentially, I am going to copy paste this so I don't have to try this all the way there. Now, let's say we saw that this is a magazine that is talking about AI. So is there a mention of NVIDIA CEO in this? And if so, what page in the PDF is it at? Okay, you could have thousands of documents. And let's say you are on timeline to come up with a report for your management or your leadership team on what was the impact of all the improvements you did, whether for your developers, whether for your product team, research marketing team, inbound marketing, outbound marketing, etc., in last 1 quarter worth of all the new initiatives that you put together, right? Well, in a RAG and a knowledge base agent like this can essentially quickly scan through a large amount of information and give you exactly the information that you want. And it's called retrieval augmented generated agent, RAG. And essentially what that does is that instead of like going out in the internet and giving you all the random information that you may or may not need, what this does is that it essentially just focuses more on what you need to basically retrieve the information from and get that data right in front of you. So while this is working on, I want to quickly show this chart here, which is basically that we heard Richard and Wade talk about this part, which is how do you take enterprise knowledge and apply it or leverage it exactly where you need? Well, that's where some of these agentic patterns can come into the play. And there are like 15, 20, or maybe 30 different patterns right now that are pretty popular. RAG is like a higher, bigger umbrella. There can be like 4 to 5 different RAGs, depending upon whether you're using vector DB, whether you're using graph DB, whether you're using nearest search neighbors, and a bunch of different algorithms. But essentially, what from a business point of view, what that does is that it actually has a lot of knowledge that it can go and basically create that workflow around. You can go and create that workflow around that knowledge. So with that, I quickly also want to talk about a couple of other, I think this workflow is still running. There you go. I think basically probably, there you go. Yeah. I think I'll probably need to double check. But this basically this workflow, what it can do is it can take a large amount of documents and quickly get you the information that you want, and so that you could build agentic workflows around it. Similarly, this is another platform, Gumloop, where you can take it to the next level and you can essentially just talk to it. So we went from crawl, walk, run. We went from a more Python prescriptive approach to slightly more drag and drop design-based approach with DeFi. And now, essentially, we are, quote unquote, we are essentially going into the vibe creating mode. And essentially here, you can pretty much give it the intent that you're looking for, that, hey, I would like to create a workflow, agentic workflow to analyze a YouTube video from YouTube video URL. Give me view stats and other important info. User will provide a URL. That's it. I did not basically expect it to give me any other detail other than this, and it will start building the whole agent right in front of you. It'll also ask a bunch of different things, and you'll also have the ability to influence what it can and cannot do, like what tools it can and cannot use. And it'll ask you for integration. So for example, if you have a tool that expects you to interact with YouTube comments, it may ask you for access to YouTube, but you essentially can sit back and watch it build that. And so with that, I want to quickly go back to some of the slides that we were talking about. I am going to just stop sharing. We were talking about, which is where do you bring this into your uh, enterprise? And for that, let me bring Wade and the rest of the team members back into the discussion. Wade and Richard, take it away from here, please.
Yeah, real quick. We want to keep things moving along, so we'll run through these pretty quick. So, as we spoke about, you're always going to want to grab the measured outcomes, and so these are real world case studies. This one's more of a finance approach, where we took a value stream of order to cash, which is a finance value stream, um, and we applied some AI to that, and so some of the before and after. So it's very manual, frequent billing errors, those kind of things, and then we used AI to help with validation and real-time credit risks and those kind of things. And so you can see some of the measured outcomes of the improvements: 30 to 50% on invoice dispute volume reduced, order rework reduced, billing accuracy improved, those kind of things. So, here on we have a couple of different areas that we have as examples, and this is real world. We are implementing AI in organizations, improving value streams, and these are, we if you're not measuring the outcomes, you're not going to be able to articulate the value that you're seeing. Modernizing cybersecurity, huge area, especially with the kinds of things that Mythos found. If you know about that model that came out a little while ago, 1,000 day zero exploits that it found. So, but AI is very, very heavily being applied to cybersecurity. And so very similar measured outcomes, false positive alerts, those kind of things. And then the last one, as an example, was really around software development. This is a huge area we're being asked to help with, is applying AI to software development. You would think with all the coding tools that are coming out, especially once you see what Dimitri has here with Remy, it is, the landscape of developing software is changing so fast. And so it isn't just about building code. There's a whole lot of processes and value streams around generating software that AI is being applied beyond just building the syntactic code that's the binary code. So, and the last, we do have an action framework. I'll pop it up there real quick. So if people want to watch the recording, they can kind of see some of the frameworks of applying and getting started. So real quick, before we jump over to Dimitri, Richard, Amit, do you have any final things to say? And we got a great tool, all that stuff you saw Amit do that might have seemed a little complex with code, and man, oh man, are you in for a treat here with what Remy's got for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all of it's important. All of it, depending upon what you need. Sometimes you need those surgical approaches that Amit shared to do agents. Other times you can do very broad techniques, which you're going to see with Remy, that build very, very powerful applications. But I don't want to steal Dimitri's thunder. So go ahead, you guys, before we wrap.
Yeah, one quick note that I wanted to quickly add is that don't be shy for the audience here who are also looking to grow in their career, as well as like build this practice or build this advanced technology in your organization. Don't be shy to reach out and partner with some of the experts who have done this, have been there working with large enterprises, because you don't have to be large enterprise to be working with people like myself, Wade, and Richard. You could very well be a medium or a large size company, and partnering with some of these experts will actually cut 12 months, 8 to 12 months from your lead time, and you will quickly be as close as possible to getting benefits of leveraging AI. So feel free to reach out through this platform and elsewhere on how you can learn from that partnership, knowledge partnership, advisory partnership, as well as actually getting some of these projects into POC.